Guys, what's happening? Typically, we're doing guns on videos and tactics and stuff, physical security stuff. However, digital security's always been really important because I recognize it as an area of vulnerability. My wife and I just went to ghost phones. This was a big deal. We had iPhones for years and years, and the convenience of it kept us pretty shackled to it. And I want to talk to you about what option I ended up choosing, and then how painful was the switch? What happens to all your apps? How annoying is it to be able to maintain the capabilities you had before? So today in studio, I'm gonna have a conversation with a tech guru who's gonna help walk us through the capabilities and features of the phone I ended up going with. Lastly, guys, after my wife and I had already made these purchases just on our own, the company that I ended up buying it from said, "Hey, you want an affiliate code?" And I said, "Don't mind if I do." So if you use the link down below this video, that helps us out, helps you out. So there you go. If you decided to go with this option, it may not be good for you, but it might be. And so without further ado, here's the conversation. Sean, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for helping me on my journey, answering all my questions and going back and forth. I appreciate it. This has been, I mean, it's a difficult world. I'm in the world of physical security and all this digital stuff. I recognize it's real important, but it's not my native language.
It might not be, man, but there's a perfect translation. And I actually say this, I travel the country doing trainings for organizations and groups and whatnot. And I'm constantly bringing it back to the physical security and physical realities, right? So in the digital domain, just like the physical domain, we can think we're secure living in a bunker with like turret gunners sitting outside and a SWAT team protecting us. But if there's enough means and motive, someone's going to find you and someone's going to kill you, right? So in the digital world, right, we can do all these things. We can be using de-Googled phones and Linux laptops and safe browsers and using a VPN. We can use all this stuff. But if someone really wants to find you and hack into your systems, they're going to be able to do so. It's just the reality. But that reality is it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of money to do that. So if you're not, Putin, or if you're not Tucker Carlson or whoever, the extent to which you have to build that fortress, that digital fortress is pretty limited, but we still have to learn just the basics, right? Let's learn some basic situational awareness from a digital domain.
And I think I understood that coming to, hey, help me find a ghost phone, of like, give me the best bang for the buck, and of like, let me at least make it really, really hard to rob the coffers or hack me or whatever else like that. And so coming to the table to you guys, your recommendation through a friend, I'd been looking at the Up phone. I looked at that and I delved into some reviews on that, and I thought that technology got really good. I think they're due for a version 2 that hasn't come out, and I really want them to have Verizon's network as well, but it's like they got a certain distance and then it seemed like they stopped. And from my part, what I saw on reviews of, they didn't really get the completed product as well. Too glitchy, too many problems. Then I looked at other ghost phones as well, but finally settled on you guys. Can you talk a little bit about the ghost phone that you guys produce and why you think it's the best thing out there?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's scratching my own itch. I've been in the digital world and technology my whole career, in the data center universe and the hosting universe. And as I really started learning how the sausage was made in the industry and following the money, I realized just how much the, let's just say, people who want to take away our freedoms and our liberties controlled and owned the infrastructure and the tools to which we were all using, right? So in warfare, communications is absolutely essential. I believe we're in a kinetic and spiritual war right now. And all of our comms are owned by entities and companies that are owned and controlled by the enemy, right? So for me, that's a problem. I don't want to have all of my data being sent out to and through systems and networks that are owned and controlled by the enemy. So I said, well, what's out there? What's available? And I started looking at different options that were available and stumbled across a open source operating system that's called GrapheneOS. And most people don't understand this, but most people think of Android and they think of Google, but what they don't realize is Android is actually an open source operating system. And I don't know if your listeners know what open source means, but it's like having the full blueprints of your home available to you, So you can see everything. You know where your electrical is, your plumbing is, where the windows are, how many stories it is, where everything is laid out, and it's updated in real time.
Opposed to like an Apple device of like I've been an iPhone user for years. It's closed, meaning you don't really know what's under the hood. You don't know what they're sending back and forth to the mothership. You can see some
100%.
stuff, but under the hood, you don't really know. Is that right?
Totally right.
Okay.
And when they say, "Hey, we fixed this glitch," don't worry about it. This is fixed. You have no way of verifying if they actually fixed it or not. You have no clue, right? Whereas in the open source world, you have a ability to look into the code and say, yes, this was done, or no, this was not done. And then you also have a community of people that are constantly providing feedback into that system, saying, hey, there's a door left open on your second floor window. You should fix that. You should go close that. And if someone does close it, you can say, great, you closed it. So that's where the open source benefit comes in. In Android, so Google Android, which most, 40% of phones in the marketplace are Google Android. Google takes that open source Android framework and then they build all their stuff on top of it.
Okay.
And then they close source it. So you really have no idea what they've really done to it. In the open source world, that GrapheneOS has done is they've taken this open source framework and then they've built tons of privacy and security tools on top of it. And then they released it out into the marketplace. So all we're doing, and I'm a big fan of teaching people how to fish versus just giving them the fish, right? So all we're doing is taking unlocked Pixel phones. So it's a Google Pixel phone. People are like, oh, it's Google. But we strip everything Google off of that phone from a software perspective. We load a new operating system. And then on top of that, we load about 40 some odd different applications that we have vetted that we feel will provide you the tools that you need to get up and running quickly. So whether it's a browser like Brave or a VPN service or a mapping application that we actually load a handful of different mapping applications so that you don't lose the convenience of the different applications that you're used to using on a regular basis. So that's all we're really doing. And that's how I've scratched my own itch. And other geeks have done the same, is we've just said, look, there's no one who's made this simple.
Yeah.
Who's just taken these pre-existing tools that are out there, assembled them together and put them out in the market and said, hey, you can use this to get Google out of your life. And that operating system is so important because it is truly what controls your device.
As you said, I didn't find a product that was already established of like, here's your ghost privacy phone. I actually needed somebody, some service, some subject matter expert to be able to take the best product out there that could be adapted to what I wanted and preload all the apps and give me the instructions. So y'all already did all the work. And so really you're selling a product, but I came to you guys because you provided a service, I suppose. And so what I appreciated when I finally did pull the trigger with you guys, and if you hadn't have answered some of my objections and stuff of like, I wouldn't have gone with y'all. Of like, it was really a bit of a mind melt to wrap my head around. All right, in order to get away from Google or Apple, to get away from Google, I'm going to buy a de-Googled Google phone. And the best way to get around Google is to find, it's like, turning their own stuff against them to your own devices. That took a little bit of mental energy for me. Quick cut from the ghost phone video. It's scary. And so I want to interrupt this program to be able to talk about our sponsor, Hillsdale College. Hillsdale College gives all kinds of free online courses. I don't know if you knew that. You would know it if you went to hillsdale.edu/WPS. You'll see 40 different free online courses. One class in particular is Ancient Christianity. If you really want to delve into first century culture to understand the backdrop of the Roman Empire and everything there, then the Greek philosophy, and then some of the early Christian heroes of Irenaeus and Ignatius and Polycarp and Tertullian, all kinds of these great heroes of the faith. It'll really unlock biblical understanding by seeing the first century and beyond through a more historical lens. I highly recommend you check out hillsdale.edu/WPS. And you'll be glad you did. You can check it out on your new ghost phone. And big tech won't learn with you because it's a ghost phone. Back to the video, here we go. Once again, that's hillsdale.edu/WPS. I'd like to get into some more of the brass tacks of the actual phone. You said it's an Android device. It's a de-Googled Pixel phone. GrapheneOS is on it. And then my very first kind of questions was, I'm like, all right, what about my apps? I've got my like security cameras. I've got my online banking. What's the solution for online banking? Is it dangerous for me to get, like my bank apps and stuff? How scary are those?
So you can totally use your online Android banking app.
Okay.
You can totally do that. However, it is not very safe for you to be having your crypto or your financial banking, any of that stuff on literally the tool that you carry around with you all the time, all day, every day, everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're going to use those tools, use it on a secure device in your home behind your own security, your router and your firewall in your home. That's the safest place to do that activity. So my recommendation for people is not to put all these social media apps and all these things on that tool. That tool should serve the basic function of maybe doing some email when you have to, maybe doing some web browsing when you have to, phone calls, text messages.
So I want to get to social media apps, but first, what you guys had recommended, and I followed your advice, instead of downloading all these applications, which are kind of, I guess that's more closed source software. You don't really know what they're doing. You got to give them some permission controls, of course, but it's like, what are they really doing? I know they're spying on me of like, here, just a quick aside story, kind of a last straw. My boys and I, are singing along to the, Robin Hood and Little John, the cartoon movie, the Oodalali song. I play that on the guitar and we just belted out. And we were singing that song and then went on to our, tech afterwards. And there in my recommended purchase thing was that movie. Now, I haven't searched for that movie. I've owned that movie for years, but my phone just heard me playing the song and us singing and recommended that we buy that movie. Just immediately went to big tech. I'm like, man, they're just listening to everything. They're just into everything. And so that drives me nuts. Y'all's recommendation, though, is, hey, download as few of these apps you can, and the more big techy, the more you should avoid them. And instead, get like a Brave internet browser, and then you just post shortcuts to your desktop so you can click on the shortcut, and then it opens a web browser. Is that, for online banking or social media or any of this stuff, is that kind of the best practices? Is that what you recommend? And if so,
100%.
How much safer is that than the native apps?
So you have to understand how a browser works. Like, what is the browser? What does it do? How does it work? And most people are oblivious. They don't understand.
Give us the layman's.
Yeah. So the browser is your access and your portal into the internet. And by using your browser, instead of downloading that software or that app, that browser then becomes the firewall, that gap between your device and that company, right?
Okay.
So if I want to look at my Instagram feed or my Facebook feed, I can go into my browser and I can go to facebook.com and I could log in and I can do 90% of the things that I would be able to do if I had that app downloaded. When I do that, Facebook's going to know you're viewing this through the browser, and it's going to give me notifications. It's going to say, your experience would be so much better if you just downloaded our app. Please download our app. Just a reminder, if you download the app, it would be so much better. It's because they want you to download that app, because the second you do so, they can start grabbing access to your contacts, to your browsing history, to all these different things, to your voice, your mic, your camera, all these different things that when you click, I accept the terms of service. How many people actually read the terms of service? Hardly anybody reads the terms of service. You've now given free reign access for that app to your entire device.
Yeah.
The good thing with using these types of devices, these GrapheneOS devices, is the operating system itself is designed to sandbox these different applications. So you now control, if you do download Facebook, I can put it in its own little quarantined environment, its own little private space environment, so that it cannot access anything else on the device.
This is if I got the Facebook app, Graphene.
Correct.
Wow, that's great. I'm still not downloading that crap on my phone.
Right.
Like, man, I've like my whole desktop, it's almost all just browser shortcuts. Almost everything. I've got, let's see, the Proton Mail. I've got that app. I've got the GPS app, one y'all recommended. Then I've got like security cameras. I had to get the app for that, which I didn't like. Alarm system, I got the app. WPSN, most important app, just in middle of the screen. But really, I don't have hardly any apps. It's all web browser stuff. Even all my old photos, I have my Apple iCloud. I have a shortcut that goes into my Apple iCloud so I can get access to all my old pictures.
Yep.
And so I really like that because I'm like, one of the biggest hesitancies I had in switching over is I'm like, great, what am I going to do with all my old pictures? Well, some of those, my favorites, I imported my favorite photos and sent them over to this phone. And so that was a time-consuming process, but it was worth it to me. I got that, and I ended up downloading all my photos from the cloud. This was not a hard process, and I put them on an external hard drive that I keep in a EMP-proof safe. And that makes me...
I may hire you to do some training.
Yeah, right. But anyway, of like those pictures, that's really important life. And a lot of times of like, I bet a lot of people keep their phone around because it's they're linked to their past 10 years. And I'm like, no, you shouldn't have all that only on your device in the Apple iCloud. Now, that's all their stuff now. Of like, no, download all that stuff and put it on an external hard drive. That's far safer and more stable. And then you can also have that uploaded on a cloud, but don't make it Apple, don't make it Google. And so that was a big concern for me, is being what do I do with my photos? Your instructions for importing my contacts, that worked really well. I immediately got all my contacts. Let's see, I've got all my calendar things, being able to have a good solid calendar app and being able to import all of my appointments. It just, boom, popped right up. Very, very easy. Good. My email, I've got a Gmail web browser that opens for the Gmail accounts that I run. I've got other...
So let me hit you on that one. So most people are like, oh, well, I still have a Gmail account. I have to use my Gmail account. I need to download the Gmail app. I'm like, no, please, for the love of Pete, don't do that. So the Gmail's, Google as a company, as you can imagine, has made that Gmail web experience so simple, so easy.
Right.
It looks almost like an app itself when you go to gmail.com and you log into your account.
Yeah.
So for those of you who have to use Gmail still and haven't migrated off of that, go through the browser. You can still do everything that you need to do through the browser. That's what it's like for almost all of these applications. There are definitely alternatives that you can use and that you should use, with your, if there's an alternative to iCloud for photo storage and whatnot. There's all these different alternatives, and we have, mountains of content on the website that walks you through what are the good email alternatives? What are the good photo sharing alternatives? What are the good alternatives for browsers or Zoom or all these different things? We have all that up there, but there's alternatives to everything. I love that you've taken it this far.
Yeah, man, I'm serious about it. I've complained about big tech for years and years, and then did a big fat nothing. But now I feel good. I've got a ghost phone. I'm running a VPN all the time. I've got all my internet shortcuts. And when I look at my phone, though, there was a learning curve to be like, all right, my GPS app is now called something different, and it's not quite as good as the Google, Maps or Google Maps or the Apple Maps. Those programs are a little better. However, this is good enough. I use it just about every single day for something, and it's working great. I'd say the social media apps I've got Instagram and X, but it's web browser opens, and my wife was amazed. I was too, but more recently, as she's clicking on it, you open up X. I'm opening it right now, and once it opens, it looks exactly like the app. It even reacts like it. And so I was really amazed that the Brave browser was so ridiculously good. I don't really miss my app. So that was impressive.
Amen.
Amen indeed. All right, so here, Sean, for the benefit of our viewers, what are some other common kind of complaints of how do we switch over, what networks are going to work, how do I do about SIM cards and all that jazz? What are you seeing people ask most?
Yeah, that's one of the most common questions we get is, I'm on XYZ network. Will it work on this platform? And understanding that the device itself is separate from the service provider. So whether it's AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Patriot Mobile, Mint Mobile, Pure Talk, whatever it is, every device is what's known as is network unlocked, which means it will work with any network service provider.
Great.
You can literally take the SIM card out of your current device and migrate it over to the new device, and your phone calls and your text messages will start transferring over to the new device.
So you said migrate, and that's a scarier word that makes it feel like I've got to decode the matrix there. What do you mean by migrate your SIM card from one to the other?
So you literally, there's a little button that pops out on every phone.
Like a little paper clip or back of an earring?
Exactly.
You punch that?
Exactly. Yeah, and we with every phone that we send out there, we send a little tool that you need to kind of press in there to pop this little tray out, and then in that tray is what's called a SIM card. Most people think that SIM card actually has their contacts and has all kinds of information on it. It doesn't. All that thing does is tell whichever device it's in that this is the service provider that you're going to have access to, and this is the phone number and the service plan that's tied to that number.
Yeah.
So if you're coming from an iPhone, you can pop out your SIM card, you can put it in the new device. Your phone calls and your text messages will start routing to the new device. So any carrier will work. I do a lot of training on helping people understand how these carriers operate and work, because the question is, well, AT&T is going to see all my text messages and have access to all my phone calls. So what do I do then, right? So that's the layers of security as you start gaining more knowledge and information. I can dive down those rabbit holes. I don't know if we have time, but that's one of the key things. And then the other is, if you're an Apple user or you're a Google user, you have to understand that they control your experience. So the reason why it is that you can send and have access to your text messages from your laptop, your MacBook, and on your iPhone at the same time is because all of your communications are clearing through Apple servers.
Yeah.
So all of it is sitting on an Apple server. So when you're accessing, both of your devices are accessing the data that's sitting on that server somewhere.
Yeah.
So when you move to a new device, you have to say, okay, am I going to use a new service that's going to store my data somewhere so I can access it from multiple different devices? Or am I going to just understand I'm living in a different paradigm right now? I'm not going to be able to send massive video and text file or massive video and picture files because it's not going to be clearing through an Apple server or a Google server. And if I do want to do that, what are some alternative tools that I can use to accomplish that? You have to make the switch. The tool that you're already carrying around, even from 7-8 years ago, is a surveillance tracking device. All they're doing, and this is what blows a lot of people's minds, all they're doing by making these new devices, is they're getting you to buy the new thing because they want more money off of you, right? Extracting more dollars from you. But from my background in the data center and hosting world, what I understand intimately is how much processing needs to go into all this information and all this data. So with all the information that they're tracking, they need to then send this data via the network to their servers so that they can process that information, right?
Yeah.
With the new devices that they have rolling out that have faster chips, that have these LLMs, the learning language models and AI tools on them, they're now able to offload their cost from their servers onto your server, because that's all this device is. It's a mini server, right? That's all this is. It's a mini laptop, mini computer. They're now offloading their cost to you. So you're paying for the privilege for them to spy and track you more. And I was just at having a date with my wife, and we were at a restaurant. And
good for you, man. Good for you. Date your wife or someone else.
I rarely watch TV. You have to. If you're married, you have to take your wife. You have to go out and take your wife out.
Good man.
Or your spouse out. But there was an ad for Apple, and it was like, Apple is privacy. And I literally almost spit my drink out and started laughing out loud, because almost every week we put out a new post that shows definitively that all these big tech companies, not just Apple, but Google and Facebook and Microsoft and all these companies, even X, like everyone loves X. So even X, these companies are losing lawsuits on a regular basis around the world, proving that they are doing all of the things that they say that they're not doing.
Apple is all about security, just like McDonald's is sponsoring the Olympics and fitness games and stuff.
100%.
That's
yes.
awesome.
And once you start to realize like, oh, so just because they say it doesn't mean it's true. And if I actually do the homework and I look at the documentation and I realize, holy smokes, they're lying to me on a regular basis. And these big tech companies have the same mindset of the financial firms, who they know out the gate that what they're doing is not legal. So they'll set aside, or they'll get an insurance policy and a couple $100 million that they know they may be fined by the SEC when they've made billions of dollars. So it's like, so what, right? These big tech companies are doing the exact same thing.
I've learned a lot, and I'm really, really appreciative for the service that you're providing for folks out there.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Appreciate what you do too.
Yep. Be well. See you. I aspired to make the video that I wish I had been able to watch from the very get-go. So hopefully it was helpful for you guys. Back to normal gun-tastic content in the weeks to come. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, toggle notifications about it all, like, comment, share, all that stuff. And we'll see you next time.